Hello, hello. I'm good, Mike. How are you? Yes, thank you. We have finally, our schedules finally aligned. I'm happy to be here. I'm excited to be here. Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Where was I in no one? Well, I graduated high school. I started college at Westchester Community College, which is actually crazy because I started college when the Twin Towers fell. And I remember watching it in in one of my classrooms, and just the professor, once the towers fell, he was like, I guess that's all I have for today, shuts off the TV and dismisses us. And yeah, so that's where I was. I started at Westchester Community. Yes, I loved it. I loved it. Crazy. I took a lot of psychology courses. I don't know if that was one that I took. A couple of math courses that I had to retake a couple of times. But it was great. I really enjoyed it. I took golf one semester too. That was really fun. But it was a great experience. No,
Interruption. Thank you, Lauren, for interrupting.
you got to tell her I said, hey.
Jen said, "Hey." She said, "Hey." She's so zoned out. She's ready to go to. I went to a party last week. Guys, and then get to that. Now she's like, "Another party this Saturday." I'm like, Jesus Christ, many parties, party more than I do.
Busier social life.
Exactly, exactly. But okay, so 9/11, you're in class. Like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah, 9/11, I was in class. One of the my peers said, turn on the TV. My professor turned on the TV. We watched it. We watched the planes hit the buildings. We watched the building collapse. That's where I was in that moment of history.
Oh, one. I was a junior in high school. I was a junior in high school, and we were on a trip to a memorial. To a memorial.
Hmm.
All we see is like just these planes zooming over our heads. Like, what's going on here? Just fighter jet flying over. And that trip, that bus was like, we gotta go back. We have to go back to school. Like, okay.
Yeah,
And then once we came back, we're like, oh,
then you figured it out. Yeah, found out.
something's not right. Something's not right. That's crazy. Yeah. Oh, one. What was it on musically? Oh, one. I'm trying to think. Sorry to say, a little Limp Biscuit, a little little Ja Rule, a little Britney here and there.
Yeah.
The second NSYNC album wasn't out yet. I don't think so.
It was big with the boy bands. Huge, huge,
TRL just ran our lives.
huge.
Wasn't life more? Was like more simpler back then? You needed.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry, I thought that.
No,
What was
that's
it?
it. That was it. For I think during that time for me it was like a big pop moment. It was like Christina Aguilera, Britney Spears.
Great vocalist.
Oh yeah, she's amazing. She's really amazing. Like, I was having a pop moment for sure.
Yeah, me too. Me too. That everything, everything was out there. You could find me at Tower Records, just headphones on, checking new albums out. Yeah, I know. I
I
was
just
sorted.
want to like state that, really I probably sound like one of those old like senior citizens when I say kids these days will never understand Blockbuster. They'll never understand Tower Records or Borders.
Right. They don't. In fact, more on a macro level, they don't understand anticipation.
Yeah.
Like that's coming out Friday. I can't wait. I just fantasize over it. Who am I talking to? Oh, he's 24 years old. 24 years old. I was telling him, I was like, dude, back in the day, like, my wall was Instagram. I'm actually on this corner. Little Kim with her legs out on another corner. I just I would take magazines, rip it out, whatever, and that was the way.
Yes.
And if you came over, you said, "That's your personality. That's who you are."
Yeah. It was a real life Pinterest board.
Yeah, so more on Instagram, Pinterest. It's a real Pinterest board. And I have it with my sister. So like, we had to share walls. So it's like, that's how you design your side. Awesome. That's
That's
how I
it.
design my side.
Stay on your side, I'll stay on mine.
But I was going to say, for the record, my older sister, she's 4 years older than me. She kind of groomed me aesthetics, including culture, music. So she wasn't somewhere I was like, boy, you're a girl. We're not going to go on. No. Oh, let's be like Madonna. Okay, cool. I'll take that record. Okay, whatever. I would take things from her to my style. I always appreciate that. Don't get me wrong. I love space. It is what it is. But '01, in the midst of all that, this little movie came out. Cameron Crowe, the director and writer. I don't know if you're familiar with Cameron.
What else is he? Do you know another movie that he's done?
Okay, I'm glad you asked. Okay, so Cameron Crowe, the backstory on him is he's a writer and director, but he was first a journalist, and he was a music journalist for Rolling Stones. Now get this, he was a young journalist. He infamously graduated high school early. So in the '70s, I want to say, or early '80s, maybe the '70s, he was a roadie. I forgot which band it was, but at 15, 16 years old, out of high school early. And if you ever go back and watch a movie with Kate Hudson, I want to say, Kate Hudson, it's called. Damn it! It's a great music movie with
Is
Elton
it
John.
Almost Famous?
Almost Famous. There you go. Have you ever seen it?
Disclaimer, I am terrible with movies and TV
So music's your thing,
unless
and books,
somebody
of course.
specifically says I am. I am a self-proclaimed bookworm. I could
It's
sit
a great
here and
thing.
talk about books until I am blue in the face.
But
But unless somebody, what?
eventually, there's a book series we got to review. One day ruined and one we're waiting.
I
But
love
go
it.
ahead. But go ahead. Go ahead.
So, yeah, so unless somebody tells me, you got to watch this. So when
I
you said you have to watch Vanilla Sky, I said, all right, I didn't see it back then. I'll see it now.
that, and I would say after you saw this movie, Vanilla Sky, go back and watch Almost Famous. It's like the father, and then I would say Vanilla Sky is the junior. You know,
Okay.
great music movie, great music, and it pretty much is a mock biopic of Cameron Crowe's life. A young kid, he's on tour as a roadie. With that being said, he had that infamous movie came out like a year or two earlier, and then he came back with this movie, Vanilla Sky. And this film, it resonated with me. I'm curious to know what you thought about it, but before you tell me, I want to say that I'm not the biggest Tom Cruise fan. I'm not. I don't get it. per se. As an 80s baby, I didn't watch, what's it called? Every jock, every bro
Yeah.
loves this movie. Top Gun.
Top Gun.
Never watched it. Never watched it. And I'm a self-proclaimed film connoisseur. I never sat
You've
and
never
watched it.
seen Top Gun.
Never seen it. And every bro, it's like,
What about Far and Away? Did you ever see Far and Away? I think it's
no,
Far and Away.
that's him. He's in it too.
So Far and Away has Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman in it, and it takes place, I want to say, I think in the early 1900s, and it takes place in New York, and they are both, I believe, Irish immigrants that have come over, and he's a fighter. It was actually very good. Really, I enjoyed that one.
Wait,
Maybe because Nicole Kidman was in it, but it
Tom
was good.
Cruise and Nicole Kidman?
Yes.
I must have been lost somewhere because I never even heard of this movie. I never heard
I
of
think
this.
it's Far and Away. I have to check.
I know.
Fine, I'm going to find it.
You could be right. I mean, I know them from two films that they were together. Days of Thunder, it's like a racing movie. And they have one with Eyes Wide Shut. Right.
I think the title is Far and Away, but I enjoyed it. It's like this, just like a cute little,
Interesting.
like
All right.
romance, and like, he's the underdog,
Okay, romance, you sold me because, by the way.
and he's like a fighter. He does like the underground fighting. It's just so.
Okay, hey, mind you, you got me at romance because I'm a big drama / role. I'm a big romance guy. I love those movies. They're always the best because they usually have happy endings and good endings, usually. Well, with Vanilla Sky, this came out in 2001. I didn't see it right away. I don't remember when I saw it, probably mid 2000 after high school. But it struck a chord with me. And the reason why I would say it struck a chord with me is because for a long time, I was a bachelor of sorts that I didn't want to say I was as vain as David's, which is Tom's character, David Ames. I didn't want to say I was as vain as him or as self-absorbed, but I understood how one person doesn't appreciate life until it hits them in the face, and sometimes timing can be too late, or sometimes your actions come back and haunt you. So I would always go back to this film like every few years or whatnot. And just recently, I've been on a high like every 2 years. I mean, I'll go back and watch Phillips now, down at boredom. So I want to get your initial thoughts on it before we dissect it and do a deep dive. What did you think about the movie?
So it's normally not one that I would choose on my own. I really enjoyed it though. I think like it got me to think about just different perspectives of life that, will raise some questions with me, which we will discuss. But I really enjoyed it. And it also goes back to, like you said, like my mom always said to me when I was younger, one mistake, all it takes is one mistake to change the course of the rest of your life. And it really resonated with me with this movie. And and just that whole aspect with it. So I really did enjoy it enough so that I watched it twice.
Shout out to you for watching it twice. First of all, shout out to mom. Mom, shout out to you.
She
But
does have a lot of words of wisdom, my mom. We could have a whole episode on that, believe me when I tell you.
yeah. I mean, I would definitely say, as I'm getting older in life, I've kind of transitioned to the idea of like I'm now that older guy who gives gems to the young people, and I hope they listen to it. From like, don't do what I did, or follow this pathway, and don't be like me, or be like David,
Yeah.
or you know. But I want to jump right into it because man, I appreciate that you liked it. I appreciate it. Even if you didn't like it, who cares? I mean, not who cares, but I wouldn't get offended because it's also a weird movie. Like towards the middle or end of it, it's like, what's going on?
It is.
What's happening
But
here?
it is. It is. I think especially too when I found out that it was basically kind of like a dream in a way, where he was in like this
A
dreamlike
quote unquote,
trance.
lucid dream.
Right. So for me, like the question I walked away with it, like from the movie with was, if we were given the choice now, would we want to live life as is with all of the mistakes that we make and just the road that we were meant to travel, or given the opportunity, would you take that dream like state and have life live the way you wanted to, but it's not real?
You bring that up because I don't know if I shared this with you. I don't know. I thought I did maybe a few one of our many calls we've had in the past, but recently in the last 2 years, I had a dream, and I never remember my dreams. I never remember my dreams. Like I'll wake up, like yeah, like 10 seconds, and it'll be gone from my brain forever. But this dream has stayed with me for the last 2 years. I would say I had a dream recently where God, if you believe in that, if you believe in that, he or she, God appeared to me in my dream and was like, "Hey, I understand you're going through a lot, and I understand life is hard, but I want to do you a favor." And I was like, "What? What, God?" I was like, "What, God? What do you have?" And God was like, or this being, this controlling being was saying, "I'm going to give you an opportunity to go back to sixth, seventh grade, start from there, do a clean slate, start over. You can do all your homework again. You can get even better grades. You can map out your life, and I'll give you the opportunity to know things ahead of time. Know what life's going to be in store for you ahead of time. Know an adult's knowledge, but in a small body as you grow again. But the trade-off is you'll never have glory. You'll never because you'll disrupt it. You will disrupt it. You will
Right,
disrupt.
that little butterfly
Yeah,
effect.
yeah, you'll exactly. And your life will be different. And who knows? Maybe you'll have a Lawrence. Maybe you'll have something else. Maybe life will stand up, but you won't have what you knew now, what you know now. And you'll have the knowledge of what you had. You'll know what you had. All right. Will you do it? And I remember in my dream, I contemplated. I was like, no, I can't go through life again knowing I had something else elsewhere. That was even with all the stressors, all the nonsense that goes with it. It's the fact that something was purely created, made, loved, and cultivated, and wondrous. I can't, and now it's going to be never be done again. Like it was just be a figment of imagination. Now I can't do it. So that kind of loosely ties into the whole lucid dream, you know. And I know people.
Yeah.
Well, in the movie, how would you describe it? How would you describe it in a nutshell?
I would say that the lucid dream is basically you're in this. You know what I would say it is? I don't know if you've ever had anesthesia. Okay. So I feel like you're in this anesthetic light state and you're dreaming. And then you don't realize that you're dreaming
Right.
and you think that it's real. There have been a few times where, I've woken up and thinking that a dream was just so real. So that's the best way that I would describe it.
You know, it's crazy. I'm glad you said that because recently, at least twice in the last few months, I've had dreams where I was cognizant and awake mid dream. I was aware that I was dreaming. It was like some real inception type stuff. Where I was totally aware that, hey, I'm dreaming right now. I'm dreaming. This is not real. I'm dreaming. And I was able to just observe it as a dream. So I don't know what that means. But if I had to describe Vanilla Sky, the film, in a nutshell, I would say it's about a man who's self-absorbed, who is never had to do without, always privileged and given what he needed or wanted, was confronted with what love truly is to him, and how he responds to it makes or breaks his destiny, his life. I know it's very vague, but we're going to dissect the details, dissect it, and then we'll go into
Yeah.
details. But mind you, I'm not wealthy, so I don't relate to David in that way, the character. But I do understand the idea of like even as a guy, let me tell you, as a guy, I understand the idea of wasting a woman's time. Because when I was younger, in my early 20s, not often, not often. But when you think about Julie Gianna's, which is Cameron Diaz's character, and how she's a young model who loves David or seemingly loves David, and David just toys with her. He just toys with her. He just uses her. I can honestly admit, maybe once. I don't want to say toyed with or played with, I remember one time in my early 20s where I could have been more defiant about what I did or didn't want from somebody. I kind of just went with the flow.
Mhm.
Sometimes you lie by omission, and sometimes you lie by just lack of energy or just like going with the flow and not being intentional with your choices. And so when I see David with Julie, I would be reminded of myself. And pretty much what I mean by that is in the movie, uh, a young billionaire. He's the owner. He's 51% controller of a magazine company. He's dealing with his father or his parents' death. He's grieving still, and he runs a company with a board. And he's seeing a woman, Julie, which is Cameron Diaz's character, but he's not really into her. You know, I don't know how this for you. Let me ask you as a woman: have you ever dated somebody, but you tolerated them, but you weren't really into them, or were you always into somebody you dated?
Guilty.
Oh, okay, so you can relate.
Yeah. And I think that I'm guilty of that. There have been times where I've dated people, that I wasn't really interested in, but I tolerated for a time. So,
What what makes us tolerate people? Why do we do this? Why do we tolerate
you
people that
know,
we don't take seriously?
well, I think for me as a woman, there is always just pressure anyway to find your match, especially as a woman, you're not complete according to society's rules. You're not complete. You're not a complete person until you find your man. So I think that I'm pretty clear in knowing what I want and what I don't want. And I think that it was, outside sources saying, give it a chance, keep going, don't let it go just yet. You're so quick to cut things off. Okay, I'll give it a try. I'll give it a try.
So as a woman, you're saying more from a societal pressure standpoint is why you would tolerate
For
certain.
me, yes, for me. But I also think like I can't speak for every woman, but I think a lot of them, yeah, because I feel like society puts that pressure on women. You're not whole until you have somebody. If you're, I'm a 41-year-old woman with who's single with cats. So like according to society, I am a crazy cat lady. And there must be something wrong with her because she hasn't settled down with a man. Like that's what society sees it as. So I think sometimes that's why I tolerated probably more than I should have.
Right. I mean, mind you, some would say we lost an election because some people can't reckon the idea that a woman doesn't have kids of her own. She wants to be president,
I
and
mean, yeah, this is,
and now we're in hell.
I don't, it's so crazy because I was okay. So side note, I was reading this amazing historical fiction book. It's called The Frozen River, and
A
it's about
frozen river.
this midwife named Martha Ballard in the 1700s, and she actually kept a journal and wrote about her experiences as a midwife and everything that was going on in the 1700s, which when I was reading it, it's really not much different than what goes on today, like domestic violence. Women were having children out of like wedlock. And there were these single mothers, and here are these single mothers that are getting fined monthly for being a single mom, where the man who, impregnated them just walked free, you know, um, and
I mean,
that
up until the '80s, depending on where you were living in the U.S., up until the '80s, some women couldn't get a bank account or a driver's
yes,
license without.
yes,
It's
yes.
crazy.
Women and it's crazy, up until the beginning of the 80s, yes.
Yeah.
Women couldn't own property without a father or a husband co-signing, a car, a bank account.
Even flesh beings. No, you can't do that. You have a husband? Really? Oh my god.
So it's heartbreaking to me that, our society wasn't ready for a woman president. And it breaks me even more that people's options were to either vote for him or not vote at all.
Right. Mind you, side. We've had prime ministers who are women in a hard Arabic Muslim country. So, like, if you can go to the Middle East and find women prime ministers, and you can't have a woman president here, what does it say about us? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But yeah, it was disheartening what happened a few months ago, and now we are reaping what we sow already in the last few weeks. And I sympathize and empathize with you when you explain your journey as a woman, as far as trying out mates and being forced societally to like try things out and keep it going. For
All the
me,
time.
that was real. For me, and mind you, you're Italian, so there's a culture aspect too. It's like,
I have to say though, growing up in the household I grew up in, especially with my mom, my dad really couldn't care less, but neither could my mom. I think that if my mom grew up in the time that I grew up, my mom wouldn't have been married. My mom would have been a single, independent woman who was working. Not like there's anything wrong with being married and with children, but my mom never put that pressure on me to be married and have children. Actually, it was more of, and with my grandmother too, you're going to go to school, you're going to get your education, and you won't rely on a man for money. You're going to do it on your own. And that was ingrained in me since I was younger. And I didn't appreciate it until years later, that valuable piece of information where my mom and my grandmother were like, carve your own path. And then whatever else falls in line will fall in line. But don't think that, don't put marriage as your first at the forefront.
it's funny you say that, because I've heard that before too from other women who have talked about how their lineage, whether moms, grandmothers, give that same advice. And on the flip side, man, I can't think how many times I hear people saying, "Yo, these chicks today, they're not like back in the day where they didn't mind if if a guy had two families elsewhere down the street." And I'm like, yeah, I mean, back then they didn't have a bank account. They couldn't leave you.
Right.
Like you held them back fiscally and socially.
Heavily
So they were
relied on a man.
they didn't say the love of it. They didn't say, "Oh, another child, come on in." Like, it wasn't because
Right.
they
I
loved
don't
your
think that there
abuse.
really was a choice. And I think that nowadays, an independent woman who has her own ideas and her own values and speaks her mind. I feel that men who aren't secure are very threatened by that, because actually we were just talking about this the other day at work, that a lot of men have a savior complex, right? Like they
Yes.
they they will just run for the damsel in distress,
Oh yes. Oh yes. Yes.
the
Savior.
hero.
Yes. A man, I guess, wants to feel needed. Like, give me the illusion that I'm bigger and better than you, and therefore I will coddle you when you need me. Otherwise, what's my value? And there's no way we can meet you there at the table and just be partners. I have to feel more quote unquote superior to you. But I still love you, it's not like I look down on you, but you need me. And it's just like, really, it's just really, you still on that
Right.
time? It's very archaic. Men are very archaic in nature. And mind you, I'm not even mad per se if you're a work in progress as a man with the archaic sensibilities. But I still want my other chicks on the side. I need a girl who's down for me, but they don't mind if I have other girlfriends too. And I'll tell them, all right, do you mind if she has other boyfriends? No, you can't do that. I'm like, then what are we doing
Right.
here? What's going on?
It's either opened or closed. It's an open relationship or a closed relationship. You can't have it both ways, but
And what's crazy? You have a sister, but you don't have brothers, right?
I don't have brothers, just a sister.
Whenever and also as a boy, and what I mean by that is, I know that there are women out there with brothers who will tell me all the time, when it came to the boy in the house, he was the king, he was the prince. He can do whatever he wants. He can lay on the couch in his boxers, eat Captain Crunch, and it's okay. But me, wake up, clean up, do this, do that, whatever. So I recognize how, mind you, I recognize how sometimes matriarchs in the family get into that.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So when you coddle young men growing up, they're going to grow up and say, of course I can do this and not be challenged because all my life no one challenged me.
Right. And the expectation is, why aren't you like my mother?
Exactly.
So you're not looking for a partner, you're looking for a mother. You're looking for a stand-in, a substitute for your mother.
Exactly. Like, hey, shouldn't you wipe my ass by now? You should be wiping my ass. You should be wiping my
Right.
ass.
Right.
So, and I think, David, Tom Cruise's character, he bears some of that, like I said, ultra privileged, um, got whatever he wanted. He had a best friend in Brian. I forgot the actor who plays Brian. He's a great actor. I think his name is Sean Lee. Maybe I'm wrong. Uh,
Jason Lee.
Jason Lee. Jason Lee. There you go. Jason. I love Jason. And he was his conscience. He would tell him, that same old line about bitter and sweet. The sweet isn't that sweet without the bitter. Which I live by. I live by that phrase. You definitely need rainy days to appreciate the sunny days.
Oh yeah.
So Brian was his conscience throughout the film. But David was David. David was a young man who was just, like I said, self-indulged, always been given what he wanted or needed, and you saw how it played out with his what was my vocabulary when he was here. Like he's unappreciative of Julie, Cameron Diaz's character. So you saw it. Remember, like if you watch the movies, guys, which hopefully you watch by now, like you see it early on. I want to say after the dream sequence in the early movie where he's running to Times Square, he wakes up with Julie in his house, in his apartment, right? And she is trying to connect with him. A little stalkerish, we have to admit. A little stalkerish. She's trying.
Yes, she takes it.
She's,
Yeah.
she's a little much, a little much. But she's trying to, coax him into like being like solid about his plans. Like, hey, you're gonna call me later, right? You're gonna call me, right? And what are we doing later? Whatever. So she's trying to like get him to commit to just daily actions. He's like, yeah, whatever. Go to racquetball with Brian, whatever. And he just left. He just so casually leaves her in his apartment. First of all, I would never do that. Back in the day when I was single, we're both leaving. Goodbye.
That's it.
You
Yeah.
got to go. Yeah, good. You got to go. All right. It kind of shows how cavalier he was in his lifestyle. Like, I'm gonna go out. I use this girl for the night. Bam, bam, thank you, bam. I'm gonna leave her. She'll leave my apartment, and I'll go outside my boy, and I'll see when I see her. And I think it kind of showed just how, like I said, how cavalier he was. And that was an early indication in the movie, in the film, of how laissez-faire he is about life and how I don't think I was extreme, you know what I mean? When I was a young bachelor just dating, I dated when I was young. I like to meet people, be social. But I want to say I wasn't as dismissive of people's feelings for the most part. For the most part. So I always felt like watching this film early on. I was like, "Ooh, he's very like he's super uber male." You know what I mean? Like he's definitely like whatever. I don't know if you ever dealt with a guy like that or a person like that, where they're just like so dismissive of, of plans and
Hmm.
actions and
Yeah.
commitment. Um, yeah, those guys are crazy. I always felt like when I was young and single as an actor, I felt like even if I don't know for sure yet where we are, I want to make sure while we're in the moment together that my undivided attention and that it's relayed to you that you mean even in the moment, even if it's just a moment, you mean something in this moment, you know, as we're figuring this out. So, that is a big indication of like David's weird. He's definitely repressed. And even throughout the narration of the film, especially early on, he would talk about his family, his parents, like almost like a third person slash like caricature. Like he would say like, "Oh, my father wrote a book," and would describe his family as just straight money, get to the business, but nothing concrete, personal. I felt like he was missing something early on. I don't know if he got that. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, because also too, I don't really know. I mean, besides Jason Lee's character, I don't really know if he was able to form like real, true connections with people.
Right, right. Right, right. You're right. You wonder that because, like, when you watch the film early on, he's going to his office, he's being dragged to a meeting with his from a secretary, and he's pretty much just scoping out the chicks in the office, like, your hair, who this, whatever, and just he's scoping out different women and just
Like
commentating. And it's like he's a hound, you know?
I feel like also too, he's also feel a little bit like narcissistic in a way,
Oh yeah, absolutely,
you know?
absolutely,
Um,
absolutely.
and when you're narcissistic, it's hard for you to have true relationships.
Right,
So I saw that in David.
right, right. He's just straight tunnel vision. Me, myself, and I. Look ahead, no peripheral. And
Yep,
like you said,
no regard for others' feelings or how his actions would impact people.
he seemed to know how to play nice. He seemed to know how to like play nice and give the
Narcissists
impression.
usually do.
Right. He seemed to know how to say the right things in the moment to make it seem like he's connected. Like he would tell his assistant, "Oh, you changed your hair," and he would say little things here and there, but like this is not concrete. This is not
Right.
true.
It's not real.
It's not real. It's not real. And you don't really see a real emotion from his face until it's his birthday party later on that day. Brian walks in with Sophia, Penelope Cruz's character, and you see how taken aback he is just by her presence. And I can tell you, as a man, a lot of times women will ask, like, women will date somebody and it's not working out, and the guy's playing around. And usually it goes down to, like, well, he's not ready for you yet, or it's not you. Like, there's a great movie. I don't know if you we probably never saw it. A comedy movie called He's Just Not That Into You.
Oh, I see. I've seen that one.
Oh, so we got to
I've seen that one.
that. We'll go over that another time. That's a great movie to dissect too. Starts with him. Anyway, um,
I would love to dissect that movie.
oh, we
Stay
will.
tuned. Part
Stay
two.
tuned. Oh yes, we will. We definitely will. That's on the docket. That's on the docket. But the messaging in that movie is what I always tell women. Usually, a man finally goes Eureka, but it'll take him 80 years, or it could take him 20 years. It could take him 5 days, but it will only be what his eyes allow him to see. So, in other words, like he had a quote unquote beautiful young lady, Julie, there, but he used Julie or Juliana, whatever it is. He just used her, used and abused her. He didn't really care to cultivate something with her. He didn't see no value in her, but he would still use her. But Penelope Cruz's character, Sophia, all he does is see her face. That's all he does. And you just see how taken aback he is. And it's funny, when I watched that scene last night or 2 nights ago, it reminded me of a conversation I had. It reminded me of a conversation I had a few weeks ago at work. And the combo was, is love at first sight a real thing? Do you believe in love at first sight? And my answer to that person was, it was a group of us. My answer was, yes, it is romantic. Love at first sight is real. And the context was somebody was saying to us, she was like, how can it be real? How can you love somebody that you don't know? How can you truly love someone you do not know at all? Like, you just see a girl down the street or on the train station and you just see her and that's enough for you. And what I would say is usually there is a chemical, something that goes off in your brain. Like, I have to figure out who this person is, get to know them if I can, track them down, and just see if what I'm feeling is real. And you could chalk it up to infatuation, I guess. But I would imagine infatuation is something that you learn to cope with or deal with. Like you meet somebody, get to know them, and you really like them a lot, and you're infatuated. But I would say the reason why I believe in love at first sight for guys is because, like, I know that feeling where it's like, who the hell is that? It's not just like aesthetic. It's just like something. Usually, it's in the eyes. It's
Okay.
like wow, that's something deep is in those eyes, and something real is there. I got to seek it out, and so I knew that feeling and that look when David Tom Cruise's character has that at his birthday party for Penelope Cruz or Sophia. What about you? What was your impressions at that first meeting between those two? What was your impression of it?
Well, I felt that he was intrigued by her. I think that she gave off this mysterious type of vibe. I think that he's used to having full access to any woman that he wants. So I think that when Penelope Cruz's character came in and she had this mysterious, confident vibe, I think that that really intrigued him because I don't think that he comes across a lot of women with that. And I think that that was just like, bing, like the cartoon with the hearts in the eyes. And then, I think that in a weird way, just like Cameron Diaz's character was obsessed with him. I think that he had that bit of an obsession with
Right.
her.
And to your point, with his narcissism, maybe he's seen somebody like, hey, I don't know who this is. I have no control of this person. Now I want
Right,
to I want to seek this person out, get to know the lowdown of this person to see if I can impose my will on them. So I'm sure some of that was there too, because he's showing off his belongings at that party, and she is not really that impressed. Like she's calling him out, saying rock and roll is dead. Is this rock and roll having a broken guitar in
right,
the house, whatever? So I definitely can agree with you there.
right. Because all of the things that he would use, most likely with other women, right? Like, oh, let me show you what I have. Like, I'm so rich. Let me show you all these great things that I have. All of these material items make me so great. And then she's like, I'm not impressed.
Yeah, she wasn't impressed.
Like, show me who you are.
Right, right, right. In fact, there's a part in the film where I want to say no, I won't get there yet. Stay there. Stay with that the theme of her showing her exploring the real him. We'll get back to that. But let me stay on chronological order. So they meet each other at the party. Brian's there, mind you. Brian is the guy who brought Sophia to the party, so that's kind of bro code or a failure of bro code to just like moving on a girl that your friend comes over. I don't know.
Right. And
Is it
doesn't it goes back to he can't have real connections with anybody because I know that I wouldn't do that to a friend.
right? Right. Is there a girl code? Okay.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah.
Okay. I always wondered that.
However, nobody hates your ex more than your best friend.
Right. Right.
So, like, that's it.
So should you, which I think yes, but should you be telling your best friend about all the dramas and ill wills with your person you're with who's soon to be ex? Or like what I mean by that is what if you get back with them? Like do you judge your friend if they're like, oh, why are you back with him or her for like or like it's
No.
like whatever, that's their job. They gotta advocate for you at all times.
Me personally, I don't judge because I look at it as I'm here for you. I will offer you my advice if you want it. So whether I'm a listening ear or you want my advice, like I'm here for you. And, at the end of the day, that person has to live with the decisions that they make, not me. So if this is making you happy, getting back with this person is making you happy, then I'm happy for you. I'm here for you always. But at the end of the day, those choices, like you have to be okay with the choices that you're making, not me. I'm living my life. I'm out in my own lane. And believe me, it's tough navigating that. But,
Have you ever had friend fatigue where like as a friend you're like, are you still dealing with this shit?
yes,
Like
yes, yes,
like dude, wake up.
yes, yes. And to the point where I'm happy for you. However, a guy will absolutely know that I cannot stand them, that I think that my friend can do better, but I'm happy for her. But like, don't think that, no,
Yeah, I'll always root for my friend's happiness. But I'll also be like, dude, and like
no,
this story's been written 1,000 times.
or like, because I've been there myself. I always tell like my friends who are like stuck on that hamster wheel, you have to have your aha moment, like that defining moment where you're like, you know what? Screw this. It's not worth it. And no matter what I tell you, until you have your aha moment, we're going to be on this hamster wheel.
Yeah. It could be debilitating, deflating aha moment where you're like, fuck, I guess it's
Hmm.
not gonna work out after all. But once you get it, it's like, it's almost like being a drug. It's like being an addiction.
Yes.
It's like, okay,
Yeah.
all right.
I was in a situation, and I had my aha moment this past summer. And I said to myself, wow, wait, no, like it's never, girl, it's not going to turn out, get off the wheel.
Right. How long was your journey to the aha moment? Would you say roughly months? Huh?
It was months. It was months. On and off, though, on and off.
No.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
hope I get credit. I hope I get credit for that. On and off.
No. 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 You're
But
human.
no, it was like a month here and here and there, and then it was okay. You know what? Let's see. And then
I remember back. We're talking next tell ever. So we're talking at least 20 years ago.
yeah, yeah,
I remember having to grieve, and part of the grieving process was like taking the long way home. Why? Because the long way home would ride past her house, you know, and it was just like I had to realize for sure this is over. This is over, and that grieving process is it sucks,
yeah,
but it's humbling once you get over it to the other side. Because now I'm like, I wish someone told me that this will pass. This
yeah,
will pass. This will pass. It felt real at the moment. It felt like, God damn it, nothing else matters right now. But, you know, like you realize after a while, like, oh no, this is just a phase. And some people in your life are just seasons, and, and I learned to appreciate what it was. Now I'm going to stick, well, first of all, I'm a married man now, so I'm out the game. But even before I was married, I remember saying to myself after a while, like, okay, people in your life are seasons, and you have to at the very least, take gems from what you went through and just learn, and immediately take those gems and throw it to somebody else who's younger than you, your little cousin, your niece or nephew, whatever. Like, yo, don't do this, do that, and just be a guider. But I want to ask you a question, by the way. I mentioned love at first sight earlier. Do you believe in that or no? Do you believe in love at first sight?
I want to say yes because I feel that I am an eternal optimist on love.
What's stopping you from saying yes?
I just feel like, yes, okay. I believe in love at first sight. I believe that true love at first sight, though, is rare. Like, true love at first sight is like being struck by lightning, rare. But I believe that it can happen.
Days with my wife, and she came down her stairwell elevator to come outside, picking her up. And I remember to this day, I remember her hairstyle. I remember the clothes she wore, the green top, the dark green top with like black tights. And I remember saying to myself, this might be for a while. This might be for a while. Let's see what happens with this thing. This
Mm-hmm.
first date, first outing, first meeting. Like, oh, this might be for a while. And then I remember maybe a few months later, we wanted to meet up on a hot Saturday. I want to say May or June. Um, she got off work early, and she came to meet me at Jackson Hole on the east side for a burger. And she came out the train station, and she had a great old top, curly hair. I was like, this might be longer. This might be a longer situation. This might be for a while. All right, well, let's see where this goes. So I think I would say that is, if it's not at first sight, usually if you truly like someone or love someone, your brain is sketched out with these moments that you just keep in your brain. Like, okay, I know where I was. This is my,
Right.
so that's how I relate to it. I want to get your thoughts on that because, like I said, aside from the crazy narcissism that David has, at that party, I did feel like some of his reaction was genuine and like a rush, a
Yes.
positive rush, a positive
Yes.
rush. So, and I can relate to that. I can relate to that. I think he handled himself well when in that same scene at the party. He has to navigate with Julie crashing the party because, of course, as a stalker, she crashed the party. You ever had a stalker, by the way? Have you ever had a stalker? I had a stalker too. I had a stalker. Give a quick stalker story. One day, next
Had a
tell ever.
couple.
You had a couple? Oh my God. Oh, well, I'll give you mine real quick. One day, this is still Nextel era. Shout out to Nextel, even though you're defunct. I go to my mom goes to the bathroom, and our bathroom window overlooked our parking lot. And she's like, "Hey, come here." I'm like, "What?" Like, your car's low.
Oh boy.
I said, "What do you mean low? The car's to the ground." I said, "What do you mean?" So I run to the window. I see my car like touching the street. So I run downstairs. I see 4 tires slashed. And this is like Modell's '04 $7.17 an hour wage. This is not this is not like career. My 20 years later, this is like
Right. This is our
hourly
part-time, full-time
part
job, what
time.
we're
Yeah,
doing in between going to school.
just gotta go to Moe's, Mike. All right. It's not a Home Depot, Mike, where it's like, wow, 12,000 an hour a raise at Home Depot, 12,000 an hour in '05, '04. No, this is like crazy low money. And I'm like, okay, and I got a note saying, the note had said, if I remember correctly, the note said, "It's only me, no one else. You can't leave." I was like, I know who that was, and it was someone that I was dealing with, and I realized we shouldn't do this anymore. Like, we're too toxic for each other.
Yeah.
And I thought I amicably,
Ended it.
ended it, severed ties, and no, I realized it's gonna be a long summer. So I could again with David, I could empathize with him having a stalker and him having to like, try to fend her off. But I would say one of David's crimes is he would also egg her on. If you don't like somebody, you shouldn't be kissing them like that. If David or Tom
Right.
Cruise, if you don't like somebody, you should say, "Hey, you're in my home. You just broke into it. It's my birthday party. You weren't invited. Get out." And you should make a big fuss about it. You should be more intentional about how you feel about someone, positive or negative. But he just went with the flow, like a lot of men do. A lot of men just go with the flow. They don't speak their intentions. They don't declare what they do or don't want, and all hell breaks loose. Stop me if I'm lying. Stop me if I'm lying.
No, I'm shaking my head, I'm nodding, I agree.
Yeah. So, I always felt like he was asking for it. He was asking for something. Right when he asked. The boy did it. But yeah, I love that scene where he meets Sophia and then he plays that cat and mouse game with Sophia. They go up the stairwell to his other apartment because he's so freaking rich. And they have an endearing moment together where, they're connecting, and then later on we'll go back to Sophia's apartment where you kind of brought up earlier, which I wanted to get into. At Sophia's apartment, they have that game. Remember that game they play where they're drawing each other? They're doing like
Yeah.
they're doing portraits of each other. What did you make of that scene where they're doing portraits of each other? If you remember correct, if you remember, she draws him and he draws her, but the game was an impression of how you view me. How do you view me? Let's draw a portrait of each other. How you view me. And do you remember how she drew him? It was like a big teeth, big money. It was like girls around him and cars. And she drew him like just a self-indulged, crazy rich guy.
Yeah. Like a self-indulged narcissist.
Says right. And when it was his turn, he actually took the time to draw like a real nice portrait of her and her beauty. And I remember thinking to myself when I first saw that, like, oh, he digs her. This is real to him.
Okay.
And I remember feeling like I've had that moment before where I've like dated the past frivolously. And, I'll call you again and we'll hang out sometime. And maybe you do, maybe you don't. And you don't mean nothing to buy it if you don't. But I remember saying to myself a few times in my life, like, I'm going to call her again.
Okay.
I'm going to attach a ringtone just for her.
Yeah. Okay. Now, when we're looking at that scene and we're thinking of that scene, right? And you had that thought about David. What do you think that she, in that moment, felt about David
To seeing the portrait or before seeing the portrait?
after?
Then she felt like, oh crap, I offended him, and he took this seriously. This wasn't a joke. He really is into me. And I think she probably felt a little guilty, and also like, oh, this might have depth. This might be realer than I thought it would be. And he's not just a playboy after all. I think at that moment she took him seriously. I think her face changed almost in the scene, and you saw like a different demeanor of her afterwards. And I think that was a sweet moment to watch. Great acting, by the way. Great acting in that scene. And that was my takeaway. What about you? What did you think when you saw that?
I thought the same. I thought that she was the whole time. I think that she had a very lighthearted attitude towards everything, a little flirty. And then I think when they showed the portrait, and his was serious, and she was like, "Oh wait, hold on, my bad." Like,
Yeah,
like, whoops,
right.
sorry. I thought that we were just kind of like this flirty, jokey type of way, and yet here you come in with something serious. So, right,
The next day, well, he spent the night with her pretty much, but he's what he calls. He says he's a pleasure to lay her. I don't know if you remember that scene, but he says he narrates as the scene is going down. He's also narrating it to Kurt Russell's character, who's a psychologist in a holding cell, and you're wondering why is this guy in a holding cell talking to a psychologist? Why is there a police guard there? What did he do?
right,
Why is he incarcerated for? So as he's narrating, he tells Kurt Russell's character, I forgot the guy's name, but he says, "I'm a pleasure delay. So I won't go for the first night. I'll wait it out and I'll warm it up and really build up the anticipation, and then go for it." And it's funny that he said that because that is something that some guys do. That is something that happens. Some guys,
like cat and mouse.
like cat and mouse, right? Like cat and mouse, which is I think it's also a little juvenile. I don't think anybody you're with or you're talking to, friend or otherwise, should be a game to you. So I think it kind of showed at that moment his level of thinking as like he was still immature in some ways.
Right, going into that whatever, that relationship,
Right, right,
or how he was dealing with the situation.
right. But something's crazy after seeing this movie a million times. I didn't know this. I didn't recognize this until watching it the next time. When he's with Sophia at her apartment and they're connecting, talking about different things, like etc. They fall asleep on her couch and he's watching a commercial or infomercial or something of the sort about a dog. This dog, it keeps coming out. It has a through line.
Oh yes,
It has a through line throughout the movie. Benny the dog, and they're talking about this dog that was frozen for a few days or for a few weeks, and suspended in time, and now it was brought back and whatnot. And you would see the initials LE, life extension at the bottom. So I didn't realize, oh, that's the thing that we'll see down the line. Okay, whatever. So he watched that infomercial, he watched that commercial or whatever, and then Sophia wakes up and they have pleasantries and he leaves her home. This is where I think, as a guy, I'm like, we should have done this. The stalker appears, Julie. As we know, Julie kind of coaxes him to like take a ride with him, which is, in my opinion, a big flub. Because first of all, bro, you have your own car here. Why would you leave your car behind to go with another woman? To another, you don't know where you're going, and
right.
you're just gonna take a ride. Like to me, that's also sort of like a if you're gonna nitpick the movie, that's like a. Would you do that? Would you leave your car behind in Lower Manhattan to go with a buddy of yours, quote unquote buddy of yours, not know where, not let your car get towed later on that day or something?
Right.
But it was a little half-assed. How would I call it? It's like not unbelievable. I'm sure some guys have done that, but it's just like, I don't know, would you do that, Jen? Would you leave your car behind because a stalker guy pulls up
No,
on you and you know what I'm saying? It's unrealistic. It's a little
I
unrealistic.
wouldn't. Some people might. Women have gotten in the car though, but me, no. I'd be like, all right, this is. You know what? How about you just write me a letter? Say it all you want. Say what you got to say
Yeah,
in an email.
email me. I'll get back
Right.
to you.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I think we've said everything that we needed to say.
Right,
But however, he probably thought it was harmless. He probably thought that he'd be able to smooth things over with her,
right.
no matter what she came at him with. And I think that that's where also to his ego. and narcissism come into play. Like, okay, well, you know what? I can get in this car and whatever she throws at me, I'm going to smooth over because it's me and she'll forgive me. And, that's that.
I also wonder at that moment, was he a slave to his own ego? Because, she challenges him. She's like, "Oh, I could tell you didn't do anything with her because the way you're walking it." And poor David, when he fell in love, and she's pretty much like mocking him and mocking the idea that he had a moment with somebody real.
Angry. She's angry.
She's angry on the surface, but she's also kind of challenging, I want to say, because it's like she is also sort of mocking the night he just had with somebody else, and kind of challenging the idea that, or are you really turning over? Are you really turning over to a quote unquote good guy or a man who wants to like see something real, and almost challenging his bad boy playboy nature, you know? And I feel like in that moment he failed because he got in the car with her, when really you just had a perfect night, one of those nights where you're showing Sophia your mother's Vanilla Sky painting, the Monet painting, which we'll get back to, and you're being vulnerable with her. You're showing her different things about your life and stuff that has been near and dear to you. You're showing her your skills and you're bearing your soul to her. And just the next morning, you just go back to being egotistical, and that ethos takes over. I felt like I want to say it's a little unrealistic, but as a guy, I realized no, guys are like that. Well, yeah, sometimes we'll fold to our ego. Sometimes we'll fold, because the ego's so strong. So, I kind of wasn't shocked he got in the car, but I was like, oh, bro. Even the first time watching it with no background knowledge, I'm like, I wouldn't do that if I were you. And, she has a conversation with him in the car, Julie Cameron Diaz, that I want to talk about with you, because I feel like this conversation was a prime example of how a lot of times guys don't respect sex. They don't respect the spirituality about sex, the transfer of energy in sex. Do you remember this scene I'm talking about in the car?
Mm-hmm.
Well, in the scene, Julie, Cameron Diaz's character, Julie, she starts to question David's intentions with her. And she kind of lashes out and crashes out and says, we made love 4 times. She even says, I swallowed your cum. And I was like, Jesus. But I
She was an
laughed.
angry woman.
She was lashing out, and she kind of reiterated that, like, yo, that meant something to me. That meant something,
Right. All valid points.
And at that moment, I'm like, dude, you got to answer that. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't just be using and abusing her without her having feelings. So, what was your impression of that moment watching that scene?
At first I was like, good for her.
Right. Like, let it
Good
happen.
for her. Good for her. Because you know what? I don't think there's not one woman out there that would be like, yes, if I could do that, I could live that scene, I would. But I did. I felt for her in that moment because I've been there. So I felt anger, the disappointment that she had. I think that moment, that overnight moment, burst her bubble, her delusional bubble that she was going to be somebody for him. Like if I could, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing, kind of like classic, a lot of women think that way. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. I'm going to show him that I am the one for him. I'm going to be the laid back. I'm going to be whatever he wants me to be
Right.
to get him to see me as the one. And I felt for her. Do I think that she should have driven the car off the thing? Absolutely not. I don't. But good for her that no. Disclaimer. No. But good for her that she kind of, and I don't think that he was ready for it. I don't think that he is used to, especially women, like telling him
Himself.
what you did to me is not okay. And, this is how I felt, and like the audacity of you. Just like,
Right.
so up until I was like, yeah, girl, sound little, I mean, she's a bit clingy, stage 5 clinger.
Stage 5 thing for sure.
So, but that's how I felt. I
But
said,
it's funny. It seems like at times he doesn't handle confrontation well, the character David, because even in another car scene previously in the movie, early in the movie, when Brian, no, he's driving Brian to a racquetball date they have, and Brian's trying to tell him about how, dude, like, you know, your life is a blessed life, but you don't know the sweet because, I mean, you don't know how sweet it is because you don't know the bitter, And even in that moment, he kind of brushes it off. He even says, "Don't tell me to give me the bittersweet, you know,
yeah.
speech again." He doesn't really like hearing medicine, verbal
I
medicine.
also feel like it's because the way that David lived his life, when you don't establish real connections and real friendships, and you're very like, oh, whatever, I'm free, I'm having fun, I'm living life, I'm not, and where his friend is trying to say to him, you're like, just know that you're blessed. Know that there are people out there that are truly struggling and you don't have any of that. Like, so, right? Like, you wouldn't know, I guess, how great you have it because you've never experienced some sort of struggle.
You never endure struggle, right? So as she is, well, you kind of mentioned it. As she is unleashing on him, she literally crashes out. She goes over. What do you call it? I forgot what the name is for when you go over.
It's like an overpass.
No, there you go, overpass.
The
Goes over
overpass.
an overpass. She crashes, and David is left scarred, bruised, facially bruised, and come to find out, I think his colleague Tommy, the lawyer friend from his job or from his magazine company, he kind of informs him in the conversation that I'm sorry about the poor girl who died. So you're like, oh, she died, she didn't make it, true. But you're realizing how now he's a recluse because he his vanity has set in. You know, his face is disfigured. He is insecure about going outside in public. And now his connection that he had with Sophia is suffering because he's too scared to go see her in this state. Until I want to say one day he does while she's at her dance class, I
Yes.
believe. And that was what I would say was a good attempt to make a connection again with her. But he screws it up, remember? He screws it up at that link up they do at a club, remember? Do you remember that scene at the club where they link up?
Yes. Yes. And Brian was there.
Brian was there, and I think he was thrown off by Brian even being there because he kind of when I rewatched it again this morning or that scene, he made a point to like say like did she actually like to be here or some to that effect. So he was already his insecurity was just firing off, just thinking too much. What do you think about that scene at the club? What did you think about it? His demeanor and everything.
Well, I think you also got to see kind of like the true him, right? Like it's kind of like when you have something like shiny and you scratch the surface and you see like underneath the surface there's really not much there.
What's that?
I
Wow.
think that he based a lot of his
Value.
his value in himself on his look and once again kind of like that material type of just aura. I think that him coming in with him coming in and not having the one thing that he probably prided on left him open and very vulnerable and I think kind of like clingy in his own way.
'Cause he
His
was
own version of Cameron Diaz in a weird, twisted way.
You're right. He was that because before, when it came to women, he was like dismissive, confident, arrogant. Even not but with that scene, first of all, he was disheveled. He had to go to the bar, get Patron. And by the way, guys, if you go through heartbreak, do not go to Patron. Don't go to liquor. Don't go to. Don't go to hard liquor if in general, but definitely not Patron. I would say I would say maybe some red wine. I'd call a buddy over and just hash it out, and that's it. Let it be done. Don't go to the bar ordering shots of Patron, thinking that's the way to solve your heartache because that's not going to work.
Just the liquid courage. I think, like, he was probably like, let me get some liquid courage. and then I'll be able to really, navigate. I'll be able to navigate.
I thought there was an interesting moment in that scene too at the bar where he's trying to order a drink, but the bartender won't look him in the eye because his face is
Mm-hmm.
distorted. And David challenges him. Hey, look at me. And then later on, the bartender's like, you know what? Here's a shot in the house. So he's dealing with all those insecurities, and I can't say that Sophia's character was giving him bad vibes. She was naturally probably just thrown off, like, hey, okay, this guy's being ultra weird, pushy, you know. In fact, she says to him as he's challenging her at the bar at the club, she wants to say something. She wants to say something, but she pulls back, and he's like, "What? What do you want to say? What do you want to say? What is it? What is it?" And she says, "I'll tell you in another life when we are both cats." I think it's a very interesting scene and line right there, um, because I've had experiences like that where, like, I don't know when I'll see you again. We do see each other in another life. I'll tell you more then.
Right.
So I thought that line was cool. And overall, you saw a man broken. He was broken by what happened to him. He was broken by his cowardice, inability to like conquer his his insecurities and just plow on. Because she said, "Let's go out." She told you we want to see you again. So you were out for a reason, but I guess in the moment he was unsure of himself. So I thought it was interesting to see how he played out the rest of the night. You remember that scene? They leave the club. They walk her to her street, and she kind of says, "All right, I'll see you guys for a movie or something. We'll see each other again." And after that, he's so hurt by the night. He challenges his boy. He challenges Brian. He said, "Did you tell Julie that we're fuck buddies? Did you tell her this?" He's like, "Bro, you've been harboring this the whole time." He's like, and he still can't enjoy himself in the moment. Enjoy that he's alive. He met a girl that still wants to see him. He has his boy there supporting him. He's still in his head, and he falls asleep on the street that night. And we think he wakes up to Sophia, right? We think he wakes up to Sophia waking him up. But if you remember that scene when she is there to wake him up, the sky is so pink.
Right.
It's
Kind
so,
of blurs her out for a second,
yeah,
and then she kind of comes into focus.
right. And she says, "Open your eyes." She tells him, "Open your eyes." And that's even though like she's in the forefront of the camera. That sky is so rich behind, so pink and blue, and it reminds you of the vanilla sky from the painting that he referenced to her, while she was at his apartment earlier in for his birthday. So, what was your impression at that moment where like she wakes him up and she gives him another chance? What are you thinking there for the first time watching?
When I watched it, I said, "Oh wow, okay." Like, she for kind of just like today's like a fresh day. We're going to start over, get up, let's do this. So I thought that it was real. I thought that this was what was happening in real life.
The first time I ever saw it, I remember feeling like this is real, maybe. I also felt like, man, he's freaking lucky. For to be passed out for the whole night, and then
Right,
this lovely lady that you love, that you like, she's willing to give you another shot, right then and there, pick you up off the floor
right,
and build you back up. I'm like, dude, if this is real, you better take it.
right.
So
However, like, I kept waiting for like the other shoe to drop because
right,
I'm like, it is. I'm like, okay, this is real life and this is good to be like too good to be true in a way. So like, what's the problem? Like, there's something, what happened?
right. And it's funny because remember he wakes up to her, and that's opposed to what his friend Brian told him. Brian had told him earlier at the birthday party, like, you'll never know the exquisite pain of going home alone.
Right,
So here I was thinking, like, oh wow, he's really gonna make it back into her apartment, or make it out with her and not be home alone again. So he really is never gonna learn Brian's lesson. So I thought, like you said, I thought it was like, okay, well, something has to happen. Like this is so surreal. But as you're watching the movie, and he's talking to Kurt Russell in the holding cell, I had noticed something. There's a scene where I guess the guard, the police guard or the prison guard, he's watching on a small TV set in the holding cell To Kill a Mockingbird. Great book, great film. If you ever read it, for shame, if anybody's reading it. I'm gonna tell everybody's watching. But he's watching To Kill a Mockingbird. To Kill a Mockingbird is a great story about a trial where someone is misjudged and wrongfully accused of a crime. And the lawyer, I forgot his name, Atticus? I forgot his name. But he has to stand up and fight for the defendant. And that character, he's a very warm, endearing man. So I was like, oh shoot, he's watching that film. And it was so. If you watch that movie again, Vanilla Sky, the 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 TV resolution of that movie playing in the background is so clear. That's some random show playing. It's so clear, like that's Atticus. So I thought that was interesting. Because you know, in that scene where Sophia picks up Tom Cruise, picks up David, they start walking with each other under the vanilla sky, and it's just so clear and bright, and everything's so positive going. And I'm like you, I'm thinking like this is so interesting how he's bounced back, like
Too perfect. It's too perfect.
It's too perfect, and I have notes here, and I'm wondering to myself, where am I? Okay, yeah, Patron. I found myself wondering, like, okay, he's now living a good life where Sophia, is trusting him. She said to him in that scene or right after, "You better be real," more or less. I'm paraphrasing, but you better be real. I must be crazy too. So she becomes his savior. She brings him up out the gutter, literally, and she gives him confidence. He's able to go back to work and advocate for his company. He's able to go through. This is the real kicker right here, Jen. If you remember, before he went out to the club with Brian and Sophia, he had met with doctors about having surgery.
Yes.
And they were very staunch about like, it's not gonna work, or you were in a coma. When you were in a coma, you couldn't do the surgery that could have saved your face then. Now it's too late. Try maybe down the line, whatever. And he was just saying, money, I have money, I'll throw it at you, whatever. But they were very firm. But then all of a sudden, after Sophia picks him up, and he's rocking and rolling in a positive state, he gets a call back mysteriously from his doctor saying,
right,
someone from Germany came in and they can help you. We'll get your face back, yada, yada, yada. And lo and behold, gets his face back. He's in deep love with Sophia. And things are looking great up until you notice a weird gentleman sitting at the corner of a coffee shop or whatever when David and Brian are talking. And David sees this guy looking at him and gives him a head nod. It's like, who's this guy? Do you remember what I'm talking about? Do you remember the scene?
Yes.
What was your impression when you saw that scene? Like, what's this interaction here? What are we doing?
Well, I thought it was the start of something. I said, okay. First, I wasn't sure really like who the man was.
Right.
But like, I was like, okay, if he's pointing him out, then he's going to be somebody significant
Right.
in a few minutes. So stay tuned.
Right.
And like, let's see where it goes.
Right. Because you wouldn't waste time. You wouldn't waste a camera shot for no reason on a guy.
No.
Or a head nod or something like that. I'm the same way. When I first saw it, I remember thinking, who's this guy? What's the significance of him nodding his head to David and David having an awkward look? And in that scene, if you remember, Brian, David's friend, is showing off a new camera, and they're talking about pleasantries and catching up. Life is grand. Life is great. And I can't remember where soon after it goes crazy, but if you remember early on, after Sophia picks up David from the ground, David is speaking positively of Sophia, saying, "We created our own world together." And I think that's a very poignant line. We created our own world.
Foreshadowing.
Yeah, foreshadowing. So like we said, back to no. By the way, another red flag. He got the surgery. No scarring.
Perfect. It was flawless.
It was flawless. Sophia, in a savior state, is able to like coax him to take off his mask. He's so scared. He takes it off, and she has a moment where she says, "It's perfect. You're fine. You're back to normal." And then I'm like, all right. You were like drooping and stuff. Mind you, I've had I've had those palsy in the past, so I know what it's like to have a suspended face, a
Hmm.
paralyzed face. Um, so I'm like, dude, you're back to normal already? Like, that's interesting. So I was like,
Curious.
uh, curious, and then I want to say in that scene, or maybe right afterwards, Bob Dylan starts to play a Bob Dylan song. And music is a big thing in this film, by the way. Like I said, the Todd Rundgren song, Can We Still Be Friends" is there. A few other records are playing out of the movies. That Bob Dylan record plays, and I'm like, interesting. But yes, a mysterious figure shows up while Brian and him are out, like I mentioned. And what I think when all hell breaks loose is, do you remember the scene where Julie comes back? There's a scene where David is laying in bed at night with Sophia, and he goes to the bathroom, and it's like his bathroom is dark, and he's washing his hands, cuts the light on, and his face is back to the accident face.
Yes. Yes.
Right. And he's like, what the hell? And at that moment, he's like going crazy. And I want to say he wakes up thinking he was dreaming. He wakes up and he goes to the bathroom. He realizes his face is fine, quote unquote fine. But he goes back to bed, and he realizes that that's not Sophia, but that's Julie. And he goes crazy. What were your thoughts then? Now we're like rip the bandit off.
So when I saw that scene, I was like, okay. Then I started to think, okay, like something's up because it was kind of like a weird. It seemed like a glitch,
The word glitch.
you know. So I'm like, okay, something. There's more to this than like a happy love story. Now, when I saw him with Kurt Russell in the beginning, I thought something happened to Sophia's character down the line. I thought like there was like some sort of murder, something along those lines where
Right.
he, you know, hurt her.
Right. Why else would he be with him?
Right. So then, like, here they are, happily ever after. And then the glitch. And then I said, okay, something's up. Something's up.
Right. Right.
So, and that's exactly what I thought too. I was like, it looks a little glitchy,
And then
like a computer type of glitch.
yeah, something's not right. So
Yeah.
something's so now we're really opening the bandit here because that's what now Sophia's gone and Julie's back and Julie's back.
Right. Yes. Glitch. I thought at that point he was having a mental break and that like he was suffocating Sophia. Like was seeing Julie, but he was suffocating Sophia, and then he was gonna like pick up the pillow, thinking it was Julie and it was Sophia. But it's my true crime obsession kicking in. Yeah, I think it was before, before, before the apartment. Mhm. I'd have to look. Mhm. You know what? When a moment like that happens in a movie, then like I'll start going back and I'm like, oh wait, now it's like, okay, you set the pieces up and like you set the dominoes up and you went shoo, and now it all makes sense. I'm like, okay, now I'm like, wow, okay, now it makes sense. I would think even before that too, when they're showing the commercials for the dog and the life expectancy with the dog.
Just once they showed
Yeah, right. There's a reason, and then I just didn't realize that that was the reason why they were showing the commercial or the dog.
subtle but not so subtle when you
Right. So I appreciated that because sometimes when you're like over subtle and you're really making it obvious, you don't appreciate what everything culminates to.
excludes, yeah.
You know,
So so in Harry, when tech support turned
well, I first felt for him, I felt kind of sad, right? Because here he was for this whole time living this life that he thought was real and he was happy in it. And then he wakes up and he realizes that nothing in that time frame from when he woke up on the street until he woke up there was real. So I felt for him. I also felt sad that it was so far into the future that even if he did decide whichever way, like all of your friends, right? Like everybody that you knew, that time that you knew is gone regardless.
one,
Right. Or happiness. Yeah. Right. And when you feel that there's no purpose.
Like, one of those guys where, like, this one, I say myself,
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, I, yeah. There's that feeling of I have nothing really to live for, and like that hopeless feeling. And they just, they can't see past that. They can't see past that fog. So I think like, like I've also had lows. I'm grateful that I've never reached a low where I've had that feeling, but I think it's something along those lines. And when it comes to David, I think that for me, it goes back to David never really had anything really truly meaningful in his life, and everything was surface, and everything to me was like kind of like artificial for him. Everything was given so easily, so that when the bitter came, he didn't know how to cope with it, and it was like a bump in his perfect existence, and his only thought was, that's it. She doesn't like me. Like, I'm just done. Like, I'm hideous. I lost the woman that I love. There's really no point. You know?
listen,
Joseph, of course I remember Joseph. Yeah, yeah.
that was my way of saying,
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
that scene.
It was, yeah, I don't like, I think that he reached that I have no purpose, nothing to live for. He reached that moment, quickly. But I also think that it's because of the way that he lived. And, he valued, I think sometimes when people put their value in look and material items and like all the smoke and mirrors, like, right, that when those things go, they're lost because they don't know what to do, because they don't have anything else to anything of. true quality, right? Anything of substance to fall back on in a way where like somebody might be like, okay, like this is what happened to me, but you know what? I'm going to get through it. It one day at a time. No. And I think that's what his friend was trying to, you know, tell him from the very beginning. Yeah.
Yeah, the skill that he had. In other words, what he was trying to say is sometimes, like, if you didn't grow up with privilege and you grew up with some hardships, it kind of toughens you for
Yes, I agree. Yes.
on the road stuff. But yeah, so David, he succumbed to his demons, rather early, I would say. And I remember when that culmination happened and tech support was explaining his fate to him, I thought to myself, like, damn, bro, you really gave up early. And damn, bro, it's been 150 years. That's a corpse now. Sophia is long gone.
Right.
And remember, earlier in the film, he had mentioned that he had fear of heights. So it was poignant that they ended up on a rooftop. And he chose as a himself. If he wants to continue with his dream, jump, jump. And I thought it was nice to see that in that last rooftop scene, he was able to have closure, if you will, with
In a way, yeah.
Brian, his boy, the psychologist, Kurt Russell, or McCabe, as you call it, and also Sophia. He was able to, I guess, let it go. Let go what his consciousness had weighing on his brain for the last 150 years. And what do you think about that scene? Like before he jumps off, as he's unleashing his regrets to his own self, or subconscious. He's releasing his regrets. What do you think about that last scene?
I think that what to me that was a great way to end it. I found that there was closure in it, and I think that in that moment, as crazy as it sounds, I really did see, even though all he did was take the leap, was character development. I saw the character development in him, and basically, I think him making a decision with, I don't want to say quality behind it, but with like thought and like, okay, like this is my choice that I'm choosing. So I thought it was a good way to end it. I was like, okay, I like.
Last question. Tech support tells him, "Hey, you have two choices here. You can either you can
Yeah, it's the witching hour in the house with the cat trying to climb the walls. Be crazy.
what's your cat's name, by the way?
So I have two cats. Rue is one, and Love. Yes. So they were sisters. I rescued them and their brother from uh, when they were like 8 weeks old. And I kept Rue and I gave her siblings away. But my friend who I gave Love to moved and could no longer take her. So I said, take her back. So now I have two crazy cats running around, crazy Callie.
Crazy cat lady. What tech support tells you,
I would love to say, right? I would love to sit here and say that I would choose to be brought back and put into society 150 years later. However, 150 years is a long time. So I think there's an adjustment period. Doing the adjustment on your own might be tough. And I think that if I chose the dreamless sleep, the lucid dream from the beginning, I don't know. I don't know if I'd be able to handle the real world 150 years later. I'd probably say if I was David, I'd go back probably to sleep. I would. However, if somebody came to me today and said, do you want to continue living life as is, real, or go like in this lucid dream-like state and everything will work out, I'd keep my real life, even regardless of everything that's going on, because it's real. I just feel like if I was David and I was 150 years in the future, it might be tough. What would you choose?
Sheer curiosity. I tell myself, don't worry. Tell myself, I've seen the best of this year. We have moments, I've got love, I served you, I was healed, I saw the best of this. But let me get back to reality.
That time has ended. That chapter's ended.
Because you know this on some level that you chose so the final test to be diligent. So you know on some level you need to confront your feelings. So that's my final test. Okay.
And see how it goes.
And so last question. Last question. What are your takeaways from watching this?
The takeaways that I took from the movie was that life isn't perfect, right? You need the bitter in order to enjoy the sweet. Life isn't perfect, but it's real. It's precious. Enjoy the sweet. Um, and that's what I took away from it. That like even when presented with this perfect world, like this perfect scenario, there were still problems, and that like just to really appreciate the moment, like here and now, the perfect and the imperfect. That was my takeaway. Right. What was your takeaway?
So
Hmm? One mistake. That's it.
type of
That was a good point. Yeah, yes, thank you for having me. This was great. That'll be our next one. I'll watch it as well. I'm gonna watch that too. We still have a few days left of this vacation. I know. Mike, thank you so much. Thanks. Yeah.